There's a quiet truth no one tells you, that even when you say you believe in yourself, a small, trembling voice within often whispers otherwise. It hides beneath your laughter, behind your confidence, inside the spaces where you tell others, "I'm fine." But if you sit still long enough, you can feel it. That subtle ache of self-doubt woven into every decision, every ambition, every moment you hesitate before taking a step forward. You say you're chasing success, but sometimes you're just running from the fear of not being enough. You convince yourself you're strong because you've endured, but strength built on denial is just another form of escape. You wear ambition like armor, yet every achievement feels strangely hollow, doesn't it? You tell yourself you can, but something inside whispers, "What if I can't?" And perhaps that whisper has shaped more of your life than you'd like to admit. You see, belief isn't loud. It doesn't shout or boast. Real belief is silent, calm, grounded, unmoved by praise or criticism. Yet most of us confuse belief with performance, with pretending, with striving, with proving. We mistake validation for confidence, applause for worth, and effort for faith. But what happens when the applause stops? When no one's watching? When the silence between your thoughts asks you who you really are without your image, your work, or your goals? You may realize then that much of what you call belief is borrowed, built from expectations, fear, and the need to be seen as capable. So the question is not, do you believe in yourself? It's deeper. It's who taught you not to. The real challenge begins when you start unlearning that quiet disbelief, the one that hides behind your smile and your plans. Because you cannot outwork a lack of faith in your own being. You can only meet it, understand it, and finally, let it go. Every morning, you wake up and step into a performance you didn't know you agreed to. You brush your teeth, check your phone, scroll through other people's lives. All rehearsed motions in a silent play where everyone pretends to know what they're doing. You smile at coworkers, laugh at jokes that aren't funny, nod when someone speaks about their weekend, and say, "That's great." But inside, you feel that subtle disconnect, a gap between who you are and who you're supposed to be. Society rewards you for fitting in, not for being real. And so you learn to blend, to hide the cracks, to mirror confidence even when your reflection feels foreign. You become fluent in small talk and silent in self-truth. At work, you chase recognition, as if it will finally silence that uneasy hum of inadequacy. You collect achievements like fragile trophies, each one giving you a fleeting hit of validation before fading into the same emptiness as before. You look around and see others doing the same, smiling through exhaustion, competing for approval, and calling it purpose. You notice how people say, "I'm just busy," as if busyness were proof of worth. It's not. It's often the mask we wear to avoid the deeper question, why am I doing all this? At home, the illusion continues in subtler ways. Parents tell their children to believe in themselves, yet they model worry, self-criticism, and fear of failure. Friends post quotes about confidence online, then crumble in private under comparison. Everyone is acting, and the stage is crowded. We speak about authenticity, but rarely live it. Even love becomes a performance. We want to be adored, not seen, admired, not understood. And beneath it all lies Bandura's quiet truth. Self-belief is not built by pretending to be confident. It's built through self-efficacy, the small, lived experience of proving to yourself again and again that you can meet life as it comes. But most of us don't allow ourselves that experience. We live through screens, schedules, and stories others wrote for us. We've mistaken performance for presence. The illusion is subtle. It doesn't ask you to lie. It simply asks you to stay busy enough never to notice that you already are. You keep chasing external approval because, deep down, you don't believe your internal one matters. You think belief will come after achievement, after the dream, after the validation, not realizing that it begins before all of that, in the quiet act of saying, I am enough, even without the applause. And so, most people remain asleep, awake in body, but not in being. They talk about confidence as if it's a mask to wear, not a truth to live. But somewhere inside, you know, this isn't what belief feels like. It's what fear dressed up as confidence looks like. It begins quietly, not as a thunderclap of realization, but as a whisper in the stillness between moments. Maybe it happens in a crowded room, where everyone's laughter feels rehearsed, and suddenly you sense how fragile it all is. The effort to appear certain, the endless need to perform. Or perhaps it comes in solitude, when the noise fades and you're left alone with your thoughts. And for the first time, you see how much of your life has been built on the fear of not being enough. It's disorienting, like waking from a dream that felt real for too long. You start noticing how often you adjust your words to please others, how your decisions bend to invisible expectations, how your self-worth rises and falls depending on who's watching. You see the small lies you tell, not malicious ones, but the quiet kind that keep you safe. I'm okay. I've got this. I'm confident. But deep down, you feel the tremor, that something inside you is asking for honesty, not image. This is the beginning of awakening, not the kind found in books or mantras, but the kind that cracks your comfortable illusions. You start realizing that most of what you've called confidence has been conditional, built on results, not roots. You believed in yourself only when things went well, only when others agreed you were worthy. But what about when you fail? When you fall short? When you lose? That's when you see the truth. Belief isn't about success. It's about trust. A quiet trust that your value doesn't vanish with your mistakes. In that awareness, something changes. You begin to pause before reacting. You notice how your mind rushes to defend, to prove, to justify. And instead, you stay still. You let the discomfort breathe. You begin to see yourself not as a project to fix, but as a being to understand. You stop asking, what should I do to become enough? And begin wondering, what if I already am? But awakening isn't peace. Not yet. It's light breaking through the fog, and that light can be harsh. You start seeing what you've avoided, the ways you've betrayed yourself for belonging, the small deaths of authenticity you endured just to be accepted. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's where the loneliness begins. When the veil lifts and you finally see, the world doesn't immediately applaud your clarity. It grows quieter, colder, almost unfamiliar. You begin to feel separate from it, as if everyone is still playing a game you no longer wish to join. The laughter that once felt warm now sounds hollow. The conversations that once entertained you feel scripted. You start wondering if you've lost something essential, or if you've simply lost the illusion everyone else is still holding on to. Awareness at first feels like a blessing, but slowly it turns into a kind of exile. You can no longer return to the easy comfort of pretending. You can't unknow the truth that most people are living through borrowed beliefs, speaking words they don't fully feel, wearing confidence like a costume stitched together by insecurity. You try to explain it to a friend, to a partner, to someone who might understand. But your words fall heavy, misunderstood. They tell you not to overthink, to lighten up, to be more positive. But this isn't pessimism, it's perception. You're not trying to escape life. You're trying to meet it honestly. Yet the more honest you become, the lonelier it feels. Because honesty demands solitude. It strips away the noise. It forces you to sit in silence with the version of yourself that doesn't need to perform. There's a story of a man, let's call him Ilias, who once lived exactly as everyone expected. He smiled at the right times, earned admiration, and built a name that others respected. But one day, while giving a speech about believing in yourself, he froze. His words suddenly felt foreign, hollow. He looked out at the faces smiling up at him, and it hit him. None of them truly knew him, and he didn't know himself either. He had become an echo of what others wanted him to be. That night, he walked away from everything, not out of rebellion, but because he couldn't pretend anymore. For months he lived in silence, stripped of titles, friends, and applause. And though the loneliness cut deep, there was something sacred in it. A stillness where he could finally hear his own voice again. You might feel that too. That aching solitude that comes when you realize you've been chasing connection through conformity. It's not that people have changed, it's that you have. You no longer seek to impress, you seek to understand. You no longer crave attention, you crave truth, and truth is rarely crowded. But don't mistake this isolation for failure. It's the passageway between illusion and authenticity. The loneliness isn't punishment. It's purification. It's the soul's way of shedding borrowed beliefs to make room for something real. The silence you feel around you is not absence. It's space. Space for new meaning, new strength, and a new kind of belief. One that isn't built on applause, but on awareness. But awareness is a double-edged truth. Once you begin to see clearly, the world doesn't stop spinning. It simply looks different. You start noticing the tension between who you've become and the life that still expects you to play your old roles. There's a quiet conflict within you now. To speak or stay silent. To live as you truly are, or return to the comfort of illusion. You catch yourself mid-sentence, realizing you're still trying to sound confident instead of being genuine. You feel the weight of people's expectations pressing against your honesty, and part of you wonders, would it be easier to go back? Every relationship tests this new awareness. Friends want the old you, the agreeable, easy version who laughed on cue and didn't question too much. At work, you feel the subtle pull to perform again, to prove your worth through productivity, to fit back into the rhythm of the machine. But something inside resists. You've seen what happens when you betray your inner voice, how it shrinks, how it aches. You can't unlearn that lesson, and yet you also fear what might happen if you don't comply. Will people drift away? Will you lose your place in their stories? That's the dilemma, isn't it? The human heart longs for truth, but fears the consequences of living it. You feel torn between authenticity and belonging, two needs pulling in opposite directions. You want to be understood, but understanding often requires you to be misunderstood first. You crave freedom, but freedom demands that you risk being alone. You long to believe in yourself, yet belief means trusting your voice even when no one else does. This is the quiet battlefield within every conscious soul. The fight between the comfort of conformity and the courage of authenticity. To believe in yourself isn't a slogan. It's an act of rebellion. It's standing alone in a world that profits from your doubt and saying, I am enough without your permission. And so, the conflict continues. Not as chaos, but as growth. You begin to realize that self-belief isn't a single revelation. It's a practice, a choice you make each time fear whispers, and you move anyway. Each time the world says, prove yourself, and you answer, I already am. But even courage has its limits, and even self-awareness can become a storm. As you continue to see too much, the pretense, the hidden fears, the quiet betrayals of both yourself and others, the mind begins to tire. It's like standing in the eye of a hurricane, calm but surrounded by chaos, feeling the pull of every unspoken truth, every unnoticed emotion, every hidden intention. The weight of perception presses down, and suddenly, clarity becomes a burden. You start to feel scattered, emotionally raw, as if every small disappointment and secret pain in the world has lodged itself inside your chest. You notice yourself absorbing what others leave behind. the unvoiced anxiety at work, the quiet despair in friendships, the subtle frustration of strangers. It's almost addictive, this hyper-awareness, this constant tuning into layers most people ignore. And yet, it comes at a cost. Sleep feels heavy, moments of joy feel fleeting, and even silence can seem deafening. You begin to question your own thoughts, wondering if this depth is a gift or a trap. The very act of observing becomes exhausting, because observation without boundaries turns into emotional entanglement. Metaphorically, it's like carrying a lantern into a dark cavern, lighting every corner, seeing every shadow, and realizing there is no end to the space that needs illumination. The light is beautiful, but it burns. You feel the ache of knowing too much, of feeling too much, of empathizing too fully. And sometimes, you wish you could close your eyes, put the lantern down, and forget the truths you've unearthed. But that is no longer possible. The awakening has roots. It cannot be uprooted. This is the collapse, not of the world outside, but of the internal architecture you once relied on. The illusions you believed in are gone, and the solidity of old certainties crumbles. Your mind becomes a storm of reflection, fear, and longing. You see the fragility of life, of people, and even of yourself. And in this chaos, you might feel as though you are losing yourself, as if the very act of knowing has splintered your being. Yet even here, in the intensity of collapse, there is a strange tenderness. In the burning of illusions, something vital is being purified. In the exhaustion of hyper-awareness, the raw materials of genuine self-belief begin to emerge. The collapse is painful, yes, but it is also the necessary crucible for something stronger, deeper, and more real to take root. And then, slowly, something shifts. After the storm of over-awareness, after the collapse of illusions and the ache of isolation, you begin to sense a quiet thread weaving through the chaos, a thread of understanding, acceptance, and possibility. It's the revelation that belief in yourself isn't about perfection, performance, or constant vigilance. It's about returning to your center, again and again, and finding the courage to be present in your own life. You realize that you don't need to fix everything, control every outcome, or rescue everyone from their illusions. There is wisdom in discernment, in knowing which battles are yours and which are not. The tension that once pulled at you eases as you begin to set boundaries, not out of separation from the world, but as a protection for your inner life, a way to preserve your energy for the moments that truly matter. You start to see that self-belief is not loud. It does not require trophies or applause. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It grows in the small moments when you honor your own needs, when you act in alignment with your values, when you acknowledge your fears without letting them dictate your choices. You see the paradox clearly now. The world may never fully understand you, yet that understanding is unnecessary. The validation you sought from others, the proof you tried to gather, all pale in comparison to the quiet strength of knowing that your worth is inherent, not earned. Imagine walking into a room and feeling entirely yourself, neither performing nor hiding. You feel the freedom of acting from a place of genuine intention rather than fear. You notice your thoughts, your emotions, your energy, and you accept them as they are, without judgment, without shame. You begin to understand that mistakes, failures, and moments of doubt are not evidence of inadequacy. They are the texture of being human, the evidence that you are alive and learning. And slowly, the world around you changes too. Not because it has changed, but because your perception has. You see kindness where before there was apathy. You notice depth in people you once dismissed. You listen, really listen, without the need to control or fix. You participate fully, without fear. Your relationships deepen. Your presence becomes more authentic. And the quiet inner voice that once whispered doubt now whispers truth. I am enough. I am capable. I am here. The revelation is not a destination but a living practice. Each day, You return to it, each choice a reminder that self-belief is cultivated, nurtured, and refined. It is a journey of conscious engagement, a gentle unfolding of trust in yourself, even when the world is unpredictable, even when fear creeps in, even when the applause never comes. And in that unfolding, you discover a profound liberation, the freedom to live fully, authentically, and in quiet, unwavering belief in who you are. Now, as the revelations settle like soft light across your mind, you begin to see the full arc of this journey. The awakening, the isolation, the conflict, the collapse, and the quiet flowering of understanding. You realize that believing in yourself is not a single act, a monumental leap, or a moment of grand certainty. It is a continuous process of integration, of weaving awareness into your daily life, of allowing insight to touch your choices without demanding that the world bend to it. You take what once felt heavy, the loneliness, the doubt, the fear, and place it alongside courage, patience, and compassion. Together, they form a balance, a rhythm, a way of being that is neither frantic nor stagnant, neither boastful nor meek. You notice how subtle changes ripple outward. You speak less to impress and more to express. You listen without needing to respond immediately, and in that listening, you find clarity. You approach challenges not as obstacles to overcome for validation, but as invitations to practice trust in yourself. Each hesitation becomes an opportunity to affirm that you are capable, that you are present, that you are enough without external approval. Even failures are reframed, not as evidence of inadequacy, but as teachers guiding your growth. The paradox you began with, that the lack of belief was invisible even to yourself, now feels resolved. Belief was never absent. It was dormant, waiting for you to remove the layers of fear, comparison, and illusion that concealed it. And in this integration, life begins to feel lighter. The everyday illusions no longer pull at you as strongly. You move through relationships, work, and solitude with awareness, but without attachment. You understand that you cannot control the perceptions of others, and you no longer try. You act with authenticity, and authenticity carries its own quiet power. The small acts of self-trust, making a choice, voicing a truth, pausing before reacting, accumulate, forming the foundation of genuine belief in yourself. You see now that the journey was never about proving anything to the world, but about returning home to yourself. The doubts, the conflicts, the collapse, all were part of the unfolding, each stage a necessary teacher. And when you look back, the paradox remains. You never truly stopped believing in yourself. You simply forgot how to listen. Now, listening, you feel whole. The quiet strength of inner belief, once obscured, now guides your every step, like a subtle current beneath the surface, steady, unshakable, alive. This is the integration, the calm after the storm, the wisdom born from struggle, the reconciliation of doubt and trust. And in this calm, you understand. The only validation you ever needed was inside you, waiting patiently for you to return.